There are moments in nature when silence itself trembles, when the wind forgets its direction and the trees seem to lean in closer. In a forest drenched in twilight, a single cry broke the stillness. Thin, trembling, soft, like a prayer wrapped in fear. It was not the growl of power, nor the scream of fury, but a mule, fragile and shivering, the voice of a child who has not yet learned to be brave. A bobcat kitten, no larger than a shadow, alone, with paws too small for the world it had fallen into. Her eyes were golden pools of longing, searching each rustling branch for the mother who never returned. Her body curled into leaves as if they were arms, but warmth does not come from bark, and comfort does not fall from the sky. She cried again, and the forest heard. So did something else. From deep within the ravines of old memory, a presence stirred, one that walked with the weight of storms in its bones. It was not friend, nor family, nor foe. It was a wolf, and he was listening. She had never known the language of being alone. From the moment her eyes first opened to the dappled light of the forest canopy, she had been wrapped in warmth, her mother's breath on her fur, her siblings tangled in sleep beside her like a wreath of softness. The earth had felt firm beneath her paws because it had always been shared. Every sound had a meaning then. The gentle purr of her mother meant safety. The rustle of play nearby meant laughter, and the hush that fell over the den when danger passed by meant someone else was keeping watch. But now, the trees no longer whispered comfort. They towered instead, unmoved by her confusion, their shadows stretching too far, too deep. The forest had not changed, but without her family, it had become unfamiliar, like a song sung in a language she couldn't remember. Each hour alone etched itself into her bones. Hunger clawed at her belly, but it was not the worst pain. No, what hurt more was the absence of touch, the unbearable stillness between heartbeats where once there had been the chorus of kin. She wandered in circles, tracing paths her mother had once walked, leaving soft paw prints in the mud that led nowhere. Her cries had become weaker, hoarse with the dust of leaves and silence. She pressed her nose to the earth, sniffing for scents that vanished too quickly, as if the wind itself was cruelly erasing her memories. She had no map but longing, no compass but the ache in her chest. And so, she waited. Not because she believed rescue would come, but because moving forward felt like betrayal. In the quiet stretches of dusk, when light blurred into mist and time seemed to forget how to move, she would curl beneath the ferns, tail tucked close, eyes wide open. There were no dreams left, only echoes. The chirp of distant birds felt too far removed, too careless to touch her grief. Even the small things, the flutter of moth wings, the shimmer of a dew-laced web, seemed to move with purpose while she simply stayed behind. Her world had shrunk to the size of her own fear. Every sound became a question, every shadow a maybe. And through it all, her mewling continued, not loud, not brave, but steady. A cry not meant to summon the world, but to convince herself she still existed within it. And yet, the forest was not deaf. It heard her. In the hollows of fallen logs and the stillness of sleeping lakes, it carried her voice. Through the narrow trails where creatures padded silently beneath moonlight, her grief was known. And somewhere, not close but not too far, a presence stirred. Not the one she sought, not her mother's face, nor her siblings' paws, but something older, something that had also once waited. The forest did not offer comfort as humans might, but it allowed echoes to travel, and in doing so, allowed hearts, no matter how unlike, to hear one another. He came not like thunder, but like the hush that follows it, a figure born of dusk and bark, his coat marbled with silver streaks of age and storm. The wolf did not slink nor stalk. He walked with the patience of something that had learned long ago that everything lost leaves an echo. The trees did not recoil from him. The underbrush did not scatter. Even the birds above seemed to pause mid-song, as if they too felt the gravity in his presence. He was not driven by hunger, not this time. His path was shaped by something softer, something wordless, something old. He had once followed cries like this, once searched for kin who never answered, who had fallen to claws or cold, or simply disappeared into the hush of the world. That wound had never closed, only grown quiet beneath the layers of seasons. And now he heard that wound again, but in another's voice. The kitten was trembling behind a scatter of wet leaves, her small chest heaving with the effort of fear and exhaustion. Her ears twitched at his footsteps, and she let out a tiny snarl, more instinct than defiance, more hope than threat. She didn't know what to make of the towering shape before her, the scent of wolf that carried with it all the wild's hard truths. But the wolf did not advance. He lowered his head, slow as snowmelt, letting the air between them fill with breath and silence. He had once been feared. He had once been fire. But this night, he was neither predator nor protector. He was memory in the flesh, and in the glint of his amber eyes, there was no hunger, only recognition and the weight of having once been lost himself. The kitten's tiny form bristled, then sagged, as if even her fear had grown tired. She watched him with eyes too wide for her face, eyes that had seen too much of solitude in too little time. He did not speak in gestures or growls, did not try to coax or claim. Instead, he settled near her, not close enough to threaten, but close enough to be known. His large body folded into the forest floor, his heartbeat slowing to match the pulse of the earth. And in that shared silence, a bridge was born. Not of trust, not yet, but of breath. The kitten, unsure, crept no closer, but neither did she run. In a world where survival often came wrapped in sharpness, this quiet was a kindness sharp enough to cut through fear. They lay like that, creatures of two different songs, humming now to the same stillness. The wolf closed his eyes, not in sleep, but in surrender. Not to weakness, but to what the moment asked of him. The kitten, curled tighter, watched his breathing, slow and deep, like a tide that knew exactly where it belonged. No words passed, no promises made, but something shifted, something deep. In the space where loneliness had lived for too long, presence now bloomed, tentative and real. The forest, so often cruel and cold, held its breath. And in the quiet curve of their silhouettes, it found something it rarely allowed to live, a beginning that did not demand blood, but offered balm. By morning, the sky was a tapestry of softened gold, woven with the hush of dew and birdsong, but neither the kitten nor the wolf stirred at its call. She had finally slept, not with the restlessness of prey, but with the fragile calm of something watched over. Her body was still, her tiny spine pressed lightly against his flank, as if drawn to the rhythm of a heartbeat that had steadied her night. The wolf remained unmoving, not out of sleep, but devotion. He had not meant to stay. He did not know why he had. But there, in the dappled light of new day, he understood that sometimes staying is not a decision. It is a response, a vow the soul makes before the mind can catch it. He did not imagine futures, did not wrap the moment in illusions. The forest would not change its nature for them. It would remain full of shadows and storms, full of rules that punish the small, the lost, the unguarded. But this morning, for once, was different. Not in what threatened, but in what endured. The kitten stirred, blinking slowly, confused by the absence of fear in her waking. She glanced up at him, a brief, curious flick of eyes, still wary, but no longer drowning. He did not move to greet her, did not impose meaning. He was simply there, as constant as the tree roots, as soft as the moss she had learned to curl against. And what was born between them did not need a name. Not family, not pack, not even kin. But it was something elemental, something that allowed her, for the first time, to explore the clearing without the heavy ache in her ribs. She stepped through the grass, light and uncertain, but always circling back, drawn by the pull of what waited at the center of her night. The wolf watched her, not with ownership, but with something deeper, permission. And in her movement, the forest seemed to shift again, acknowledging her not as a victim of its hunger, but a creature now marked by resilience, and by the strange, quiet blessing of having been seen. So they remained, not as hunter and prey, nor as savior and saved, but as two stories interrupted by grief and stitched together by presence. The wolf, old enough to have been many things, had become something he never thought to be again. Enough. And the kitten, born too early into the ache of absence, had found a rhythm that felt like refuge. They would not walk the same paths forever. The wild does not promise permanence, but it remembers moments like this, moments where the laws of survival pause, and the heart writes its own code. In the hush of dawn, beneath the gaze of trees that had seen centuries, The lost were no longer alone. In the quiet after their meeting, as the forest holds its breath and the first light spills like a whispered promise through the leaves, pause with me here. Feel the weight of loneliness eased by the softest presence. Let this story settle like a gentle shadow across your heart. Now, I invite you, beneath this vast canopy of stars and stories, write your own affirmation. Not a mere phrase, but a breath, a pulse, a vow whispered to the wild within you. Share it in the comments below. Let your